You crack an egg into a pan. Yellow center, white ring, done in 90 seconds. You've done it 1,000 times and never once asked the obvious question. There are about 11,000 species of bird on this planet. Every single one of them lays eggs, and you eat exactly one of them. Chicken eggs make up 91 to 96% of every egg produced on Earth. Not most, nearly all. Somewhere in the last 3,000 years, a small jungle bird from Southeast Asia beat out 11,000 competitors and took over your breakfast completely. And here's the thing nobody tells you. It didn't win because its eggs taste better. It won for a reason so strange that people used to bury this bird in graves instead of eating it. Let's go. Think about how weird this actually is. Ducks lay eggs, geese lay eggs. Quail, turkeys, emus, ostriches, pigeons, gulls, every one of them lays eggs. And all of those eggs are edible. Some are bigger, some are richer. Some, honestly, taste better. A duck egg has more fat, more protein, and a yolk so orange it looks fake. An ostrich egg is 3 pounds of pure omelet. One of them equals about 24 chicken eggs. You could feed a family reunion with a single egg, and yet you have almost certainly never eaten one. Walk into any supermarket in America or Europe, and the egg aisle contains exactly one animal. 11,000 birds, one winner. Zero competition. You'd think a food this basic would come in more than one flavor. It doesn't. Why does the entire planet eat one bird's eggs? It's not one thing. It's never one thing. There's a math problem hiding in here. There's a piece of hijacked biology that is honestly a little disturbing. There's an accident involving rice. There's a federal law with a $15,000 fine. And at the very end, there's a 2,000-year-old religious taboo. 7 layers, each one stranger than the last, and the first one is going to correct you before we even start. Let's fix the question first, because the premise is wrong, and you already know it. You eat other animals' eggs constantly, you just don't call them eggs. That little orange scatter on top of a sushi roll, that's tabiko, flying fish eggs. Each one under a millimeter across, the glossy red beads on a rice bowl, are ikura, salmon eggs, and people pop them between their teeth on purpose. Sago comes from capelin, and at the very top of the pile sits caviar, salt-cured sturgeon roe, a food so valuable that the entire planet produces only around 380 tons of it in a year. Think about that for a second. That's an animal's whole reproductive output, sitting on a cracker, selling for thousands of dollars a kilo. We don't avoid other animals' eggs. We chase some of them to the edge of extinction. Beluga sturgeon are critically endangered largely because of what's inside them. So the real question isn't why only chicken eggs. The real question is narrower and much stranger. With fish, we cast an enormous net. Sturgeon, salmon, capelin, flying fish, cod, herring, trout. We'll take roe from anything with fins. With birds, we picked exactly one species and stopped looking. That asymmetry is the actual mystery. Fish eggs, dozens of species. Bird eggs, 1. Same planet, same appetite. Completely opposite outcome. That gap is what we're here for. And once you notice it, you can't stop noticing it. So hold that thought. Because everything from here is about one narrow test. What makes a bird's egg worth farming? And why almost no bird on Earth passes? Here's the first wall, and it's pure arithmetic. Most bird eggs are too small to bother with. A large chicken egg weighs about 50 grams. A standard quail egg weighs 10 to 14 grams. A jumbo one, maybe 18. So you need 3 to 4 quail eggs to equal 1 chicken egg. Now picture breakfast. Picture peeling 4 quail eggs, each with a shell-like tissue paper and a membrane that actively fights you, to produce 1 fried egg's worth of food. Now picture doing that for a family of 5. Now picture doing it every single morning for the rest of your life. Quail eggs are delicious. They're also a hobby. Go the other direction and it gets worse, not better. An ostrich egg is 3 pounds. 24 chicken eggs inside one shell. Sounds efficient until you try to open it. That shell runs up to 2 millimeters thick, and people genuinely use a drill or a hammer and chisel to get inside, and the moment you open it, you're committed. There is no refrigerator in history that wants half an ostrich egg in it. There is no such thing as 1 ostrich egg for 1 person. And then there's the bird attached to it. Ostriches stand 2.5 meters tall and kick hard enough to kill a lion. Good luck with collection day. And there's a cost nobody counts, which is the finding. A chicken lays her egg in a box you built, at a spot you chose, roughly when you expect it. A wild bird hides hers. That's the entire point of a nest. It's camouflaged, it's elevated, it's defended, and it exists specifically so that things like you never locate it. Every wild egg you eat costs you a search. Every farmed egg costs you a walk to the coop. So this is a Goldilocks problem, and almost nothing on Earth solves it. The chicken egg is not a coincidence of taste. It's a coincidence of size. Big enough for a meal, small enough for a portion, cheap enough to become a habit. 50 grams is the sweet spot, and one jungle bird happened to land on it. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Size wasn't even the hard part. Size is just physics. The next one is biology, and it's why the chicken won. Most birds are what scientists call determinate layers. A robin lays 4 eggs, and then she stops. Not because she's tired, because her body counted. It's called clutch completion inhibition. The eggs are in the nest. The nest reads as full, the hormones flip, and laying shuts down. She starts incubating instead. That's the bargain her species struck with survival. Lay a small number, go all in. Guard them with your life. Now take an egg out of that robin's nest. What happens? Almost nothing useful. She might lay one more. She might abandon the nest entirely. Either way, you are not building a farm on that. You get 4 eggs a year and 1 furious bird. So much for the robin. The red jungle fowl, Gallus gallus, ancestor of every chicken alive, doesn't count as strictly. In the wild, she lays 10 to 15 eggs a year in 1 or 2 clutches. Better than a robin, still nowhere near a farm. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Over roughly 3,000 years, humans bred that counting mechanism out of her. Remove an egg from a modern hen's nest, and her body doesn't register a loss. It registers an incomplete clutch, so she lays another. Take that one. She lays another. The brooding instinct, the part that says stop, sit down, protect this, was selected away almost entirely. A wild jungle fowl lays 10 to 15 eggs a year. A modern laying hen lays 250 to over 300. Year-round, no winter break, no pause, no stopping at all, ever. That's not a metaphor. That's natural selection, aimed by us, at one switch inside one bird. We found the only common bird whose off switch could be broken, and we broke it. Every other bird stops. The chicken doesn't. That's the entire ball game. And it's worth sitting with what that actually means from her side. Every egg she lays, her body reads as missing. Every morning, she starts over on a clutch that will never be finished. Because you're standing there taking it. That's not a farm animal doing a job. That's an animal stuck in a loop we cut into her, 30 centuries deep. Whatever you think about that, it's the reason the Isle has 1 bird in it. No other species could be put in the loop. But broken biology alone doesn't get you a farm. The bird also has to tolerate you. Think about what you actually need. You need a bird that nests on the ground, because nobody is climbing a tree twice a day. You need a bird that stays put instead of flying 3,000 miles away every autumn. You need a bird that eats what you already have lying around, grain and scraps and bugs, rather than live fish or flower nectar. You need a bird small enough to pick up, and careless enough about its own eggs that you can take them without a fight. And you need a bird that won't kill you. That eliminates more candidates than you'd think. Geese are territorial and unbelievably loud. Swans can break your arm. Ostriches, as we covered, kick like a horse with a grudge. Gulls dive bomb your head. Eagles are a non-starter for reasons that should be obvious. And most of the world's 11,000 bird species fail the very first test anyway. They nest high up, in cliffs, in trees, in reeds. Somewhere you have to work for it. Every time, forever, the red jungle fowl checks every single box by accident. It's a small, ground-nesting, grain-eating, non-migratory, non-aggressive forest bird from Southeast Asia. It roosts low, it scratches at dirt, it follows food. From a farming perspective, it is almost suspiciously convenient. So let's be honest, it isn't that the jungle fowl was the best bird. It's that it was the only bird that didn't fail. It was the last one standing. And the way it ended up standing next to us involves rice. In 2022, a team of researchers did something nobody had done properly before. They re-examined chicken bones from more than 600 archaeological sites across 89 countries. and they radiocarbon dated the ones that actually mattered. The results, published in the journal Antiquity and in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, rewrote the chicken's entire origin story. The oldest confirmed domestic chicken bones on Earth come from a site called Ban Non Wat in central Thailand. The date? Roughly 1650 to 1250 BC. That's it. That's the whole history. The chicken is younger than the pyramids. It's younger than Stonehenge. Your breakfast is a fairly recent invention, and here's the part that matters. Those bones appear exactly when rice farming appears. Not before, not after, alongside. So picture it. You're a red jungle fowl. You live in the forest, shy and quiet, staying away from anything, with eyes. And then one day the forest ends. And where it ends, there's a field. And the field is full of seed. Piles of it. Dropped on the ground. Free. Every single day. Forever. So you edge out of the tree line. And then you don't leave. The chicken didn't get captured. The chicken applied for the job. Rice and millet pulled a wild bird out of the trees and into a human village. And it is not left in 3,000 years. From Thailand, it spread fast. Central China, South Asia, and Mesopotamia. By the late 2nd millennium BC. Ethiopia and Mediterranean Europe by around 800 BC. But it wasn't carried as livestock. It was carried as something else entirely. And we'll come back to that at the end. There's another reason, and it's the least romantic one. Eating wild bird eggs is illegal. In the United States, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918 protects roughly 1,100 species. And it doesn't only protect the birds. Read the text and it covers any part of them. Feathers, nests, eggs. So the sparrow's egg in your garden hedge is federally protected. The robin's nest on your porch light is federally protected. Picking up one empty shell you found lying on the ground can technically put you in violation. The penalties reach up to 6 months in jail and fines up to $15,000 for an egg. And this wasn't paranoia, it was a correction. In the Victorian era, egg collecting had a proper name, oology, and it was a genuinely mainstream hobby. Respectable men with glass cabinets and cotton wool competing over rarity. And rarity, it turns out, is a catastrophic thing to build a hobby around. Collectors pushed hardest at exactly the species that could least afford it. So the law slammed shut. Britain did the same thing with its own Protection of Birds Act. And then something strange happened. Eating wild eggs stopped being a food question and quietly became a legal one. 2 or 3 generations later, nobody even files it under food anymore. It is simply scenery now. Here's the thing about laws like that. They don't just change what people do. They change what feels normal. There is an entire category of food sitting in every hedge, in your neighborhood, and your brain doesn't register it as food at all. That's not biology. That's paperwork. A law quietly rewrote what your eyes see. And then the chicken egg did something no other egg has ever done. It stopped being food and became infrastructure. Think about what a supermarket actually needs. It needs a product that arrives the same size every time. That stacks. That grades into small, medium, large, extra large. That fits a carton designed once and never redesigned. That survives a truck. A chicken egg does all of that because we spent 3,000 years making it do all of that. Wild eggs are all different sizes, all different shapes, laid on a schedule set by weather. You cannot run a supply chain on that. You cannot put that in a carton. But it goes further than groceries, and this is the part almost nobody knows. Your flu shot is grown inside a chicken egg. That's not a joke. For more than 70 years, the standard way to manufacture influenza vaccine has been to inject a candidate virus into a fertilized chicken egg and let it multiply inside. Each dose burns through roughly 3 to 4 eggs in a single United States flu season that adds up to somewhere around 140 million eggs. Not eaten, injected, incubated, harvested, and processed into the shot in your arm. Which means there are flocks of chickens kept in specific, protected, pathogen-free facilities, whose entire purpose is producing eggs for medicine. The location of some of these flocks is deliberately not publicized. Think about that for a second. A wild forest bird from Thailand walked into a rice field 3,000 years ago, and now global pandemic preparedness partly runs on its reproductive cycle. No other bird is load-bearing. The chicken is. Now let's be honest, because there's a version of this video that lies to you here. None of this means other eggs are bad or unused or weird. It mostly means you're Western. China produces just under 80% of the world's duck eggs. In 2023, that came to around 5 billion of them. Across China and Southeast Asia, duck eggs make up 10 to 30% of all egg consumption. That's not a curiosity, that's a staple. Salted duck egg. Century egg, cured for weeks until the white turns to dark amber jelly. Balut, a fertilized duck egg, eaten from the shell. And one of the most popular street foods in the Philippines. Quail eggs are normal in Japan, Korea, Brazil, and Colombia. Ostrich eggs get served as novelty omelets in South Africa. Goose eggs turn up in European baking. Emu eggs are a small industry in Australia. So the honest version of the question isn't why humans only eat chicken eggs. Humans don't. It's why the chicken took 90+% of the entire planet. And why in your specific supermarket, the word egg has quietly stopped meaning egg and started meaning chicken. One species standing in for 11,000. Which brings us to the last thing, and it's the wildest part of the whole story. We didn't domesticate the chicken for eggs. That is not what happened. Remember when I said chickens reached Europe around 800 BC, but not as livestock? Here's what actually happened. When archaeologists dug up the earliest chickens in Iron Age Europe, something was wrong with the bones. They weren't butchered. There were no cut marks, no breakage, nothing. These birds were old. They had lived out full lives. And then they had been buried, whole, alone, in their own pits. In some sites, they were buried alongside humans. Men were buried with cockerels. Women were buried with hens. They weren't food. They were exotica. A strange, spectacular tropical bird that had arrived from the other side of the known world. And people responded the way people do, by deciding it was divine. Chickens were associated with a god the Romans would later match to Mercury. And we don't have to guess about this, because someone wrote it down. Julius Caesar, in his account of the Gallic Wars, recorded the custom of the Britons. The Britons consider it contrary to divine law to eat the hare, the chicken, or the goose. Contrary to divine law, it wasn't that they didn't like chicken. It was a sin. In Britain, chickens weren't regularly eaten until around the 3rd century AD. And even then, it started at Roman military and urban sites. For something like 1,000 years, this animal lived among us and nobody touched it. Think about that for a second. The bird you scramble for breakfast was once buried in graves beside people who believed eating it was a sin. Which flips the whole story backwards. We didn't go looking for a better egg and find the chicken. We got handed a sacred bird we weren't allowed to touch, kept it around for 1,000 years for reasons that had nothing to do with hunger, and only much later noticed what it could do. The eggs were a side effect. The most efficient food animal in human history got in the door as a god. So tomorrow morning, you'll crack one open, 50 grams, $2 a dozen. The least remarkable object in your kitchen, except it isn't an egg from a bird we chose. It's from a bird that chose us, wandering out of a Thai forest chasing spilled rice. Got worshipped for 1,000 years, got eaten by accident, got its off switch broken, and ended up outcompeting 11,000 species to become the only bird on the shelf. 11,000 birds are still out there, still laying, still protected by law and biology and distance. And your kitchen has room for exactly one of them. The chicken didn't win because it was best. It won because it stayed. More strange animal truths, same place, whenever you're ready.